All right, you guys are live.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are. And if it's evening, it's actually cocktail hour. So maybe that would be a really good idea because it's only 3 in the afternoon here in Phoenix. I am drinking tea. What are you drinking?
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And
No?
very Scottsdale looking cup.
It is. Actually, it's France. I brought it home from when we lived in France for 6 weeks in my suitcase, which was an act of insanity, but nevertheless, I did.
But you must love the cup in order to protect it in international travel.
Absolutely true.
Just what you need to have a china cup to take care of.
I bought some chestnut handled steak knives at the same time, and they too came home with me. But this was a challenge at security. Anyway, here we are, and I have a very nice introduction to Hank, although I like to think that anybody watching this doesn't actually need this, but nonetheless, I'm going to read it because this is the formal introduction. Hank Phillippi Ryan is the USA Today bestseller of 14 novels of suspense. She has also won multiple prestigious awards for her crime fiction, which I can attest to because I've been there while that's been happening. 5 Agathas, 5 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. She's also been nominated a bunch of times too, I think, if I remember correctly. She's also the on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV and has won 37 Emmys, which if Hank and I have time, we will tell you a very funny story about her 37 Emmys, but by a person who doesn't watch television and so did not appreciate the fact that Emmys were actually significant. 14 Edward R. Murrow Awards and dozens of other honors for her groundbreaking journalism, which I would interpolate as one reason she is such a crackerjack novelist, because anybody who can do great journalism has lots of material for creating fiction. Is that not true?
Well, that's a very perceptive and wise thing, as always, as you always are, Barbara. But I do think that it's journalism is looking for a story. Journalism is searching out a story. It's also being able to work on a story without really knowing what the ending of it is, because if you knew the ending, it wouldn't be new. So right. I don't know the ending of my books, but that's okay. I'm in search of the story the whole time. And, I've been a television reporter for 43 years, which means I've been telling stories for 43 years, right? With a beginning, middle, and an end, with a character you care about, a problem that needs to be solved, where the good guys win and the bad guys get what's coming to them. And in the end, you get some justice and you change the world a little bit. And, in fiction, I make stuff up. And in investigative reporting, I clearly don't. But it is the same rhythm. It is the same pace. I don't want you to turn the channel when my stories are on. And I want you to miss your stop on the subway when you're reading the books. It's the same, it's the same combination of entertainment and enlightenment and education and life-changing storytelling. And so it's very similar. It's very similar.
Similar. I love your alliteration. That was really good. E after E after E. You gotta love it. But I guess my thought was, because I've been talking to a number of people lately for various events about what sparks off the idea for a story. And I would think that you've run across situations that, you had to cover in journalism, however they broke, but might have given you a nudge towards the story idea for your fiction.
Yeah, I've wired myself with hidden cameras and confronted corrupt politicians and chased down criminals and gone undercover and in disguise. So it would be really a waste of, 40 years of experience not to put that in the books. Yeah. But it's a funny kind of sort of Rubik's Cube combination of a little bit from this story and a little bit from that story and a little bit from my criminal defense attorney husband's cases, putting it all together, and you sort of like a Rubik's Cube, twist and turn, and come up with something that's absolutely fictional. And I mean, I've been at murder scenes and in fires and with SWAT teams and in hurricanes and ice storms and cold weather like we're having right now. So I know how people behave too. And that also comes into this. We know what people sound like when they're lying. We understand, right? We understand when someone's trying to, as a television reporter, somebody's always trying to convince me of something. And that makes me understand that there's always another side of the story that maybe I just can peel away. So again, all of that goes into television. The house guest isn't from a real story, though, I have to tell you. It's
Well, I
from,
hope not.
well, it's from real life, which
Yeah.
is not a story that I covered, but someone that I knew, this wonderful woman, I mean, smart, successful, savvy, had a great job, brilliant career, happily married to this guy. And every morning she would go off to work and send him off to his job as a whatever he was, accountant or insurance person or whatever. And everything was just fine. And those people, like, the next big sale is just around the corner and the next big deal is just about to happen. Those people.
Right.
And she would come home and be all supportive and wonderful. And it went on for several years until the police came to their door. And he had never gone to work at all. He had never. The job was imaginary. And he had been home doing illegal things, which we shouldn't even discuss, on the computer all day. And she had no idea. She just didn't know. And it made me like, then during the pandemic, I'm sitting right here at this desk writing. My husband, Jonathan, has commandeered the breakfast room as his law office. And so he's in the breakfast room lawyering. And it made me realize that even though we're a room or two away from each other, we really don't know what the other one is doing. My husband is a paragon, and he's lovely and he's brilliant, but he's not doing anything untoward, but he could be. And from his point of view, I'm supposed to be in here writing my next book, and that's what I tell him that I'm doing. But, I could be typing all work and no play makes Hank a dull girl, like in The Shining, all day, and he wouldn't know. So I started thinking for the house guest, how much do we really know about that person who's on the pillow next to us? How much do we really know about what they're really doing? And that was sort of the impetus for the house guest. I mean, we say when things happen, in the Madoff case, oh, she must have known. She's not paying attention. But I learned in my research, and we can talk about this, that most women involved whose husbands are doing something untoward just don't even know until the police come.
That came up, I think it was last night, talking to your friend, Deborah Goodrich Royce, about psychopaths and serial killers. Or it might have been the night before, but I think it was Deborah.
You have such a fun life.
I kind of lose track, But anyway, one night, and the question arose, as it often does, is, why wouldn't the wife have known that her husband, was a serial killer? And, sometimes, I think just from what I've learned that you could lie to yourself or not notice that, whichever way you want to look at it, much more easily than, let's say, if the man were an abuser. There are wives who deny, abuse, but I think to really penetrate a psychopath would be extremely difficult. I think it came up when somebody said, how could that woman have married
Ted Bundy?
Ted Bundy, exactly. Yeah. And, I can easily see why somebody would have married Ted Bundy, because, all of that is sunk so deep inside him that it just isn't like he was wearing it on his forehead.
Well, exactly. Think of all the times that you hear people say, he was such a nice guy. He seemed like such a quiet, introverted guy. I found a case in Indiana of a woman who was married to a man and had 3 children. And she thought he was from time to time a little quirky, but that was sort of all it was. And she loved him and he loved her, and the children were lovely and fine. And one day, one of their kids found in the backyard, buried in the woods behind their house, a skull. So, she takes the skull to her husband and says, sweetheart, look what Jimmy found in the backyard. And the husband says, oh yeah, that's my father's old medical school skeleton. And the woman says, oh, okay, really? And so in hindsight, we say really, but she believed it. And then later he was just acting very strange. So she finally called the police and said, something is going on. And it turned out they found at least 11 murder victims that he had buried ostensibly in the woods. And he was a crazy serial killer. And he shot himself before they could crack down on him or arrest him. But they found thousands of bones. And here's this perfectly nice suburban woman with a perfectly nice suburban family. And she just didn't know. she just didn't know. I mean, and Mrs. Madoff, has always said she didn't know about what her husband was doing.
Well, that I can easily understand, because he wasn't doing it at home. And I think maybe that's the difference between wives denying children being abused in the home or something, because it's actually in the home, as compared to the guy burying bones in the woods, or Bernie, ripping off people at the office.
Because
if
they
it's
were
your house, and that would be really hard if it were going on in your house. That's like willful blindness or something. But I can understand it if it's outside the house.
Husband goes to the office. What do they do? Who knows what they do?
That's very true. So you have an interesting husband and wife duo here in the house guest. I haven't finished this introduction. So since I was asked to read it, I'm going to finish it.
Oh, God.
Right? National Book Review has called Hank a master at crafting suspenseful mysteries and a superb and gifted storyteller, which is really true. They don't happen to mention how generous she is with other authors, how wonderful she is about leading people towards books that they would like, and supporting the whole world of crime fiction, and being a fantastic host. I've had the pleasure of watching Hank moderate or host any number of events, some of them at the Poison Pen, amazingly enough. Do you remember Ian Rankin? Do you remember the incredible speech that Ian Rankin gave when we had that event at the Biltmore for Ian on the occasion of his 30th birthday? And you and I stood over on the side and cried. It was so amazing.
Cried about how he wrote his books, and how what his hometown meant to him, and about how he had grown up on literature. And it was genius. It was brilliant.
It really was. It was one of the most inspirational things I have ever listened to. So Hank and I have had a lot of experiences together doing things like that, but she's way better than I am at actually hosting things. So kudos to her. She's been named best thriller, her novels rather, have been named best thrillers of the year by Library Journal, New York Post, BookBub, Pop Sugar, etc. And now we get back to her current book, is The House Guest. So I didn't want to waste it, since I actually printed it out on request.
Thank you.
That's why I did it. You're entirely welcome. And I'm sure that I don't know if there could be an audience that actually needs an introduction to you. Do you think there are?
Oh my golly, I think that most everybody needs an introduction. I'm always enchanted to meet new people. And at every event, there's someone who I've never met before, or I've never seen before, who just came in with their friend, and it's new. So, we've been friends for so many years. I mean, almost 20 years, I think. And so we know each other, but I love that the community changes and grows. So I'm always very pleased when someone reads my introduction. So thank you. Plus, it's reassuring to hear, on the days that I have a bad writing day and I think I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm never going to be able to write another book. And I hear something like that. And I think, okay, well, it's worked before, so maybe it'll work again.
It's really hard to imagine you with any breach of confidence, but in any case, and you do magically write book after book after book, which are amazing. I have to say that I was running short on time due to the amazing cleaning efforts that I've been making in our annex. But I reread the end of this book, which unfortunately we can't talk about. And I thought, how in the world did you ever keep all the moving pieces in this book moving in a way that works out well? Since we can't talk about the end of the book, let's go back and talk more about the beginning, however much you feel like you can reveal. But maybe let's start. I have a better idea. Let's start with this. You have referred to this as a cat and mouse thriller. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by a cat and mouse thriller as opposed to like a military thriller?
Oh, that's interesting. What a good question.
Or a serial killer question or something.
To me, a cat and mouse thriller, and my books, they're not graphically violent. There's no graphic sex. There's not even really inappropriate language. But what there is manipulation and gaslighting and deception and sort of the destruction that people do to each other emotionally, psychologically, that sometimes what we say to each other is so devastatingly emotionally harmful that it's almost worse than getting shot. I mean, it's not, but you feel terrible. You could ruin someone's life by the wrong word, by manipulation, by gaslight. And so I'm fascinated by that psychological, emotional destruction that people do to each other. And in a cat and mouse game, what is the cat and mouse? What are the cats and the mice? What are their goals? The cat wants something. The cat wants to get that mouse for something. And there's a chase because the mouse is not dumb. I almost said the mouses. The mice are not dumb. And the cat is not dumb. The mouse is smaller and the cat is stronger, but the mouse is smarter. So or something like that. I'm seeing a cartoon in my head. We've seen Tom and Jerry. So it's a chase. It's an emotional, psychological chase where two characters want something and they're going to do anything they can to get it. I always ask myself when I'm writing, what does this character want and how far will they go to get it and why? And that's the cat and mouse game. Someone wants something and they're after another person who may not know that they're being pursued. And that's another key element as well. And then in my books, I set up like a cat and mouse game, like X person is going after Y person. And we know this. And then, but what if Y person is actually going after X person and they don't know? So I always say it's a cat and mouse thriller, but which character is the cat and which character is the mouse? And that's one of the things that I think I try to keep suspenseful in the books.
Well, you do a wonderful job, and you definitely you have to have X and Y. You have to have two players here. You have to have a cat and a mouse. What if you throw in a Z? Does the Z change the dynamic?
This triangular structure of X, Y, and Z is the most fascinating thing that there could ever be. And that exists in the house guest as well, as you well know. And so if X and Y, no, we're going to totally do math here talking about writing. I don't want to do that. This is not algebra. But if one person has a goal and another person has a goal and another person has a goal, it can be person X and person Y versus person Z. Right. Or what if it's person X and person Z versus person Y? How the relationships change. Every time you have a triangle of any kind, the action is going to be affected by whether it's which two against which one and who will prevail. Right. And I do that in the house guest as well, because you don't really know whose side anyone is on. Each person is out for themselves, but some of them are allied, but you just don't know which ones and why.
But isn't that inevitable in any time you have three people in a triangle? Does it always come down to two against one? Or not two against one, but isn't there always, I'm one of three children, for example. And so I know, that there's a shifting, but there's always that dynamic of two joining up in one, but it can change. It could be two and then one, but then it can be one over here and then that person's out.
Depending on what someone wants, and depending on who has the power. And that's what a novel of suspense is. What does someone want and who has the power? And to write a novel of suspense, a standalone like the house is, like the house guest is, a standalone like the house guest is, this is the only story there'll ever be about Alyssa McCallan and Bree Lawrence and Des Russo and Bill McCallan. It's the only story that you'll ever hear about them. And so my readers are smart. All of you out there are smart readers. And you know that I'm going to try to fool you. And you're trying to guess what's going to happen in the book. So I know that you're trying to guess. So I'm not going to do what you think I might do. But then you're smarter. So you think, oh, she's going to do the other thing. So I think, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that either. So my job throughout is to try to pull the rug out from under you. And in a standalone, anybody can be good. And anybody can be bad, right? Anybody can be good at the beginning of the book and bad at the end. Anybody can be telling the truth. Anybody can be lying. And anyone can die.
That's right.
Anyone can die in a standalone. And you know that as readers. You know that anyone can die. So there is absolutely nothing that you can take for granted in reading a standalone, because that's the power that we have as authors, is that in a standalone, you just never know.
Which makes it so exciting to read them. And I'm finding that more and more authors actually like writing them for those very reasons. It's more work to set up a new world every single time. But on the other hand, it's really satisfying to put everybody into play, everybody at risk. And the reader does not come, go in and exit the book knowing that Jack Reacher is getting on the bus, for yet another adventure.
I mean, kudos to the series writers because
absolutely. Well, you've written the series, so you certainly know how that goes.
Exactly. And you know that Jane Ryland isn't going to die in the Jane Ryland books because she's coming back for the next in the series. So it's up to in a series, it's up to the author. The author's challenge is to make a compelling, high stakes life and death drama where it's not based on the mortality of the main character. Because
right.
Just as you say, Jack Reacher's not going to die. And still they're page-turning thrillers. How does that happen? It's a skill.
It is. And I think it's interesting that you can write both, that you can write a series and then you can write a standalone. Do you find that if you exit the series to write a standalone, that's energizing and refreshing? And then the same is true if you went back to your series character, it's sort of like going home and that's a whole different set of emotions?
I'm sure it would be. I'm not quite sure what home is. That's an interesting question because my first 9 books, is that right? Were series books and I loved it. But when I started writing Trust Me, my first standalone Trust Me, I thought, oh, this is good. This is a good thing. I love that one time only feeling of power. That this is the most important thing that's ever happened to this person's life. And now you're going to get to read about it. And they had a life before the book and they have a life after the book, which you'll understand. But you're going to get to know just the good part. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. If there's ever comfort in writing, I'm not sure there ever is comfort.
Yeah, but I think you like challenging yourself. And so, comfort is not going to be part of your skill set here. Let's talk about the character here, because while we can't talk about how it all comes out, we can at least talk about how it starts. So tell us a bit about Alyssa.
Well, Alyssa McCallan is the star of the story. It's one point of view. It's only Alyssa McCallan's point of view. And when the book opens, Alyssa is incredibly unhappy. She has been happily married for the past 8 years to a man that she loves and who she thought loved her. And one morning at the beginning of the novel, he's just walked out. He has said, I've had it. I've had enough. I need a break. And Alyssa's like, you need a break? Like you can put me on pause, like I'm a video. And he leaves her and he threatens to take the house. And he's affluent and powerful and tough and really manipulative. But he's sort of benevolent. He runs a charity organization. And he's also got some inheritance, a lot of inheritance. So Alyssa McCallan, hardscrabble beginning, winds up being married to the powerful, manipulative, but affluent and loving Bill McCallan. One day he walks out and leaves Alyssa alone. She's without money now, potentially. She was without a house now, potentially. And Bill has taken all the friends. And what is she going to do? She's terrified and bereft. And she's also a little nervous because even though she's living in the house by herself, she suspects that Bill has been coming into the house when she's not home just to let her know that he always has the power and he's always in charge. And just when Alyssa thinks all is lost, and this is chapter 1, just when Alyssa thinks all is lost and she really needs a friend, she finds a new ally, a kind of seductive new ally, a woman who has problems of her own. And the two of them decide that maybe they can solve each other's problems. So I guess the tagline would be, in a divorce, one spouse gets all the friends. What does the other one get? If they're lucky, they get the benefits. So people have called this Gaslight meets Thelma and Louise via Strangers on a Train. And if you think you know what that is, you might, but don't forget the gaslight part. So who is gaslighting who? And that is the house guest.
I love it. Those are 3 amazing movies, all lined up there to describe a book. But, basically movies are storytelling just like novels are. So it makes perfectly good sense. Do you think, you compared these to movies because movies have such a wide appeal? More people watch a movie in general than have read a book.
Isn't that interesting? Well, and I do think that some of these really, truly classic, iconic movies bring us together. I mean, we know what Gaslight is about. It's about a husband trying to convince a woman, that his wife, that she's crazy, that she's completely losing it. So we've taken it to mean somebody who's trying to convince someone emotionally of something. Thelma and Louise, instantly we know that's two best friends, two women friends who maybe or not may not come to a good end, but they're in it together. They're the power team. And then Strangers on a Train, you know, that the classic crisscross. I'll take care of your problem. You take care of my problem. No one knows we know each other, and we'll make this work. So if you put those all together, we know that this story is about greed and divorce and betrayal and female empowerment and revenge. And all of those elements are in The House Guest, and all of those elements are in those three movies. So it's just sort of a way of shorthanding what the book is about.
No, I understand that. I just, as I said, I find it interesting because, you know, somebody said to me, isn't that sort of apples and oranges, you know, that you've got novels and you've got movies? But no, because the truth is, you know, they're powerful stories, whether they're delivered on the screen or whether they're delivered in print.
And whether we watch the movies on the screen, watch the story on the screen, or whether we see the story in our mind, it's still that same emotional story, still that same experience.
It is the same experience. You know, once we did I can't even remember why, but we did some sort of a program about the Maltese Falcon. I can't remember where it was or something. And all of a sudden, in the middle of it, I thought to myself, I wonder how many people have actually ever read Maltese Falcon. I bet 90% of this audience has seen the movie. And, you know, it's Humphrey Bogart and the whole bit. And so I asked. And in fact, I was right that virtually everyone there had come to The Thin Man from the movie and had never read the book.
The Maltese Falcon, yeah.
Yeah. And
and you know, in the book, Sam Spade doesn't look like Humphrey Bogart.
Nobody looked like Humphrey
Sam
Bogart.
Spade doesn't look like Humphrey Bogart at all. Completely the opposite. True. But we picture him as Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do. But I think what I'm saying, I think it's so interesting that, you know, the story that came from the book went to the screen, and most people saw it on the screen, but think they read the book. Yeah. You know, it's really
like To Kill a Mockingbird. Many more people have seen the movie, I bet, than have read the book. It's very different. The movie is only one little tiny segment, but we think of To Kill a Mockingbird as the movie, most people.
So in writing this kind of book, the cat and mouse book, where there are surprising things going on, Deborah and I had somebody raised the question last night. I thought it was an interesting one. What's the difference between a reveal and a twist?
Oh, golly, you know, I will confess to you that I don't think about it that way, as clinically as that. We were talking earlier about that my stories are, what does someone want and how far will they go to get it? And in real life, in the lives that you and I and all of us listening to this discussion have, there are things that are just surprises along the way, things that happen to us that we never could have expected, that we have to learn how to deal with. And making a decision about something surprising is how character is revealed. And the decision that people make as a result of this apocalyptic rug from getting pulled out from under them, that reveals their character too, right? What they do they do the benevolent, loving, wonderful, sympathetic thing, or the sort of venal, selfish, manipulative, illegal thing? How do they react? So a reveal and a twist, to me, it's just the surprises of life, And I think sometimes the power of an author is to set up the perception for the reader that the world is a certain way, because you're looking at it through the point of view of one of the characters, and you believe that character. This is how the world is. Oh, okay. And then what if the character is wrong? And they say, oh my golly, she was driving the car? How did that happen? I didn't know that. Or I wouldn't ever do this, but she has a twin? I didn't know that. It's something that you don't know That's revealed. Okay, so that's a reveal. I'm now talking myself into this. It's something that the reader doesn't know, but that someone knows, and it is shown, it is revealed to the audience at the time that the author wants to reveal it. In my situation, though, I don't know it. It's not a reveal to me. It's a surprise to me. So when someone says she has a twin, again, I would never do that. But I'm using that because I never would, and I don't want to spoil anything. I think, oh my golly, that's so interesting. Who'd have thought? I had no idea about that. A twist is when you, and it often happens sort of in the middle of the book. A twist is when you take everything you ever thought you knew that was real in a novel, and you just make it be something else. That the good guy is actually bad, haha, and that's a twist. It's a very unexpected reversal or change of the entire structure of the novel.
Right, which I think, talk about movies. We were agreeing that Vertigo is an excellent example of that. Everything you thought you knew was going on in Vertigo.
And Gone Girl, totally pulls the rug out from under you in the middle of the book. Is it the Claire McIntosh book, I Let You Go?
Yeah,
where there's this book. Yeah, this massive twist in the middle of the book, and lots of books have those now. It's almost, you can sort of look at page 200 and see where the change, that twist, is going to come. And I do think I always worry when someone says, "Oh, there's this big twist," and I think, don't tell me that, because now I'm going to be reading the book in expecting assuming, looking for it.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a nice distinction. I really do. A reveal is okay. This is what's been going on, and now I'm going to let you in on it. Whereas the twist just knocks everything, And so you and Deborah are actually in agreement,
as always.
Are right. Well, I know you've talked to her, so I thought it was maybe it was something you discussed.
No, we've done several events together, and she's lovely. Reef Road is really great, and we sort of had a meeting of the minds. I think we're sort of similar and had a similar trajectory and similar passions. It's she only lives a couple hours from me, so
right. Well, and she has a background in theater and is as an actress and so forth, which is not the same as being an investigative journalist, but nonetheless is one where she's used to telling stories in a different media. So, so I think, and you're both blonde besides. So.
Sort of.
We are.
Some days.
Indeed we are. So you have spent an incredible amount of time doing virtual events and now live events with other authors. You are so supportive of the writers community. How do you feel about being back out live?
I'm a little bit apprehensive about it from the standpoint of health. I'm gloriously delighted about it from the standpoint of actually getting to see people. Right. I mean, I went to an event last night with Rena Dye Randall for her new book, Night Angels. And there were people there, Rachel Barenbaum was there, who wrote Atomic Anna, and Trisha Blanchett was there, Herrick's End. And it was, I've seen these people, some of them, actually, I had never met any of them in real life.
Really?
I felt that I knew them from seeing them in these little square boxes on Zoom all the time. And so it almost brings tears to my eyes to see the people in real life. And I know on this tour, I'm coming to you at the end of August, and there'll be people that I have met online and in these Zooms who I feel as if I really know, and I'll never have seen them in real life until you bring us together. And so that real life meeting is astonishing. But I can tell you, I'm packing for the book tour right now. And I realized that my cosmetic bag that I kept packed all the time because I was on the road all the time before the pandemic, I want you to know that 3-year-old toothpaste that has been opened is no longer good. It is no longer Gucci. It is solid. So the 3-year-old cosmetics have all gone, and I'm packing up like crazy to head out on the road and see everyone. So it's exciting. What do you think?
Exciting. I have the same reaction. Part of me worries, and part of me, has. But Zoom is a peculiar intimacy in that, since you can't see anybody. sometimes I feel that Zoom conversations have a degree of intimacy. It's really hard to do when there's an audience there. And this reminds me that I have been remiss in saying that Hank and I are having this conversation today, Friday, February 3rd. But in point of fact, the house guest does not publish until Tuesday, February 7th.
How did you do that, Barbara? How do you always get ahead of everyone? It's quite amazing. And I'm so pleased. Look at this is the real,
That's the real
version.
book. And that was my next point, which is that Hank actually has in her possession right this moment our books, because they went shipped to her, and she's thoughtfully signing them, and they will ship to us on Monday. So they won't make it quite on Tuesday, but it will be close enough. And, the answer to your question is, Hank, that if you were here physically today, Friday, they wouldn't have let us do it. But because we were on Zoom and the books, we're not handing over the books before your publication date. The fact that we can have a conversation is a whole different thing. You have to distinguish between a live event where people expect to pick up the book and take it home, and a Zoom conversation. We could have actually done this like 2 weeks ago, and it wouldn't have made any difference in terms of the physical book. And it does act, I think, to encourage people to pre-order, or, the other thing I really like about Zoom, and not every bookseller would say this, but we sell enough books that we can actually say this, is there are plenty of fans who are audiobook fans, or they're digital fans, or they don't live in the United States.
Yes.
And those people, otherwise, if we weren't doing it this way, really wouldn't get to see you, wouldn't get to have a conversation, wouldn't be interested in the book. I don't mean that. Wouldn't be interested in, talking about the book. So there's a whole, I don't want to say charitable, because I don't think that's the right word. You're the wordsmith. Tell me what it is. There's a whole sort of thing that happens with a conversation like this that can't happen if it's you and me and whatever audience actually showed up, as though it were a play on Broadway at the bookstore.
It makes it be international. It makes it be inclusive. People don't have to get up and go anywhere. So it's actually, frankly, easy. You just click on Poison Pen Bookstore, and there is the next wonderful person that you'd like to hear about. And it's easy enough to get a book from you. That's one-click ordering as well. So it's the best of all worlds, and you can still go make dinner afterward.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's why we stream all our events from the bookstore, which in some ways is self-defeating in terms of audience. I was there Tuesday. Patrick did an event Monday night, and Tuesday there was a couple that came shuffling into the store to pick up the book for Monday night. And I sort of looked at them, and they said, well, it was cold, and we were in our jammies, and we thought, why should we go down? Why should we get dressed and drive all that way when we can just sit down here in front of our smart TV and we can watch and then we'll go pick up the book? And I thought, you can't really beat that dynamic.
Nope, that's a service. That is a benefit and a service, and it's all outreach, no matter how it is. And then they get the joy of listening to the author and to you, and they get the book when they want it. It's sort of.
But they also got to watch it when they wanted to watch it. I said that to Jane Harper the other night. I said, you'll be really surprised, because there might be only 50 or 60 people actually online while we're having this conversation. And by tomorrow, it will have jumped up to a few hundred. And by the day after, it will jump up to 1,000. And, I find that so interesting that people come to it when they have time for it. Do you know that the podcasts that we are doing from these events have had 206,000 downloads? Think about that, that's another whole way that people can experience time with an author. They don't have to sit in front of a screen. They don't have to come down like tonight. If you were doing an event in Boston tonight, how many people do you think would actually show up?
No, you know what? They're saying, and this has actually happened to me. I'll tell you this in a minute. But if I had an event in Boston tonight, if you and I were in Boston tonight, the governor has said, don't go outside. Don't go out. And so, great, that would not be the best. I'll tell you very quickly, I did an event at a bookstore in Newton, my hometown, my town that I live in now, years and years ago, in person, with Catherine Hall Page. Catherine Hall Page. You all know Catherine Hall Page.
Very well.
There was a blizzard. There was a snow emergency in Boston. It was a blizzard. So I called the bookstore and I said, you're canceling, right? Because the governor's saying it's a snow emergency and not to drive. So she says, oh no, our patrons walk. And I said, well, yeah, but it's a blizzard. They're not going to walk. They're not going to walk in a blizzard. And she says, oh, yes, they will. Yes, they will. So, okay. So my intrepid husband takes me to this place, in violation of every law in the universe. Catherine Hall-Page and her husband came. We're sitting there. And 3 people came, 3. And I thought, well, all right, we're going to just do our best book talk that we've ever, these people are going to be lucky. They're intrepid. They went. And it turned out that one of them had just been walking down the street and happened to see it and was freezing and came in.
To get warm.
To get warm.
Yeah.
One was a 14-year-old kid who wanted to give his 800-page manuscript to Catherine because he was going to be the next child author star. So he sat through this whole conversation that he had no reason to care about, only because he wanted to give his manuscript to Catherine. And the other one was this woman. And I thought, I know her. And so, by golly, I don't remember her name, but I'm just going to be really good. And so afterward, I said to her, I'm so sorry. I know you, but I just can't place you. Can you help me with this? And she says, oh, yeah, I'm the cashier at the CVS drugstore next door. I'm just waiting for the bus. And,
Right.
and so
No,
that's
I do hear you. And, I used to panic when we had particular weather events here because Phoenix doesn't have any public transportation, and it's an enormous city. It's bigger geographically than Los Angeles now. So we're talking people who sometimes drive 55 minutes or an hour and 10 to, and, when the weather would go bad, I would think there goes the event, because there wasn't going to be any afterburner. But now, now we stream the event, and there's a no failure. It can't go wrong, because there's always going to be an audience out there, regardless of the weather or the parking situation or whatever it might be. Or if at the last minute, for example, if you were coming here tomorrow, the way we had talked about, and no planes are flying out of Boston because it's like minus 50 or something in the wind chill, we could have pivoted to Zoom, and people would have, been okay with that. And I really love that it eliminates the catastrophe from book events.
I love that. Eliminates the catastrophe.
It does.
That's
It
just
absolutely
great.
does. Makes it seem much easier. Well, The House Guest, which I absolutely love, which comes out Tuesday, let me remind you, and you can still order autographed copies, or you can follow Hank on book tour and buy one somewhere else. What are you doing next?
Well, this weekend, I am working like crazy. I'm writing 1 million blogs and doing 1 million events sort of online to get everything ready, all my graphics, all my posts, everything. I'm also doing Pashmina TV. Do you know about Pashmina TV?
No, what's that?
Every day live. And some of you who are here, I know that you watch Pashmina TV. Every day I come on Facebook spontaneously live at some point that I don't announce, and give away a gorgeous house guest Pashmina.
Oh, how
which
gorgeous.
I will send you one. And
How
they're
beautiful.
voluptuous and cozy, exactly what you need. So you can wear them with the house guest showing, if you like
I love it.
or you can wear them like slinkily with the house covering up the house guest. So we give away a house guest Pashmina. We also give away a house guest shoe bag. See how this is? It's a glamorous
isn't
little
that
goodie
beautiful?
bag.
What a great idea.
Because you need it if you're a house guest, right? When you're a house guest, you're always too cold. So I do Pashmina TV. I don't know how it got to be named Pashmina TV every day on Facebook. And then Monday I have online events, and then Tuesday I have my first real life event here in Boston. And then I go on the road to Wake Forest and Greenville, South Carolina, and Vero Beach and Atlanta and and all over the country, and with new toothpaste and ready to go.
I love it.
So I'm really thrilled with the reaction to the house.
You should be. Yeah.
Library Journal Star says it's binge worthy.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. And Publishers Weekly said Ryan is a master of suspense. So I'm getting a t-shirt made with that.
I think you should. Although, you remember the word stellar? Stellar was the buzzword from your last book and your last interview.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So I can say, because I have actually read it all the way through, that you really do actually have to read this book to the very last page to figure out what happened. I mean, it keeps turning. I was fascinated. That's why I went back to review it, because I thought, maybe it's so frustrating to actually talk to authors about books like this before or right when they publish, because some of the stuff you really like to discuss, everyone will hate you if you do, because
That's
you'll
true.
completely ruin
Well, I
the
can
book.
tell you, there was something on Facebook that said, can you describe your book in 5 spoiler-free phrases? And I figured that out. And that is a gorgeous house on Cape Cod, a shocking divorce, a sympathetic FBI agent, an emerald necklace, and a new best friend.
Very nice.
Do you get it from that? Do you get it from that?
Well, it certainly makes you want to read it.
I hope so. My total goal. It's interesting because I worked, you work on a book for a year. I worked on this book for a year and I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea who was good and I had no idea who was bad. And I just, George R.R. Martin calls my kind of writing a gardener, because you plant a seed and you cultivate it and water it and work on it, and then you see what grows. And so the joy of seeing what grew from the seed of the house guest has really been amazing to me. And I love that you talk about, and it's not only the ending, it's the middle and a quarter of the way through where something happens that's either a twist or a reveal or a little bit of each. And I want to tell you that it was just as surprising to me as it is to the reader. And I hope it will be to the reader. And it's quite wonderful. And then this precipice of, here we go. And I hope people love it. And so I'm very grateful for your kind words.
Years ago, Minette Walters and I were having a discussion at the Poison Pen, and she said something I often quote, and I've always remembered, in which she said, the end has to be as good or better than the beginning. And the truth is, it's very easy, to come up with a shocking opener or, dynamite, whatever it is, but to actually finish it is hard. And I think in this case, you did it. You really did a great job. It truly delivers, the beginning. Well, you'll find out when you get to read it. But let me say that I didn't ask my last question quite correctly. Are you working? Oh, I love asking you this because I know the answer. Are you working on another book, Hank?
Oh, am I working on another book? Yes. And I just sent in last week. I sent it in. And I'll tell you, I even sent it in with an ending. Sometimes in the past, that ending, because I need to stick the ending, and it's really hard to do. You're so right. Sometimes I have made my deadline by sending in my book saying, and here's the book, and there are 3 more chapters to go, and I still have to figure out what happens, and I will. And I figure that my editor, by the time she's read the beginning, I will have the ending.
Finished out the ending, right?
Sort of, manipulating the timing. But in this case, and I'll tell you, the new book is called One Wrong Word. One Wrong Word. And it's about a PR consultant who lives and dies by making people believe the world is a certain way. People want the world to seem one way, and she makes it be that way. But on page 1, we realize that all those words have been unfairly turned against her. So it's a question of, can she come back from this one wrong word? I'll tell you all about it next time, but because who knows what it'll turn out to be. But I sent it in with an ending, one wrong word. It'll be out at this time next year. So I hope I'm talking with you about One Wrong Word.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm hopeful that we will. I can't be sure that we will, but I'm really hopeful that we will. But that leads me to a final question before Jacob pops up, which is, how easy is it? You're going out to talk about the house guest, and yet the book that you just finished and the story you've been immersed in recently is not the house guest, which you finished a year ago, and however, but let's say roughly a year ago. But in fact, One Wrong Word. Do you ever, stumble or have a moment where you're talking about the house guest and actually your mind is fixed on One Wrong Word and you kind of
I had to actually physically, emotionally set my brain to talk about the house guest and sort of tuck One Wrong Word and all of its characters away, because you're so right. You know, so many writers, you understand this so perfectly. One Wrong Word was my top of mind book.
Exactly.
And so I had to sort of tap it down and bring back The House Guest. You know, we know our books so well. I mean, if you gave me a manuscript of The House Guest right now and you changed one word of it, I would say, I didn't write that word. That's not how I wrote it. I know it so intensely, perfectly. But once you write another book, your brain cells are sort of filled up with the other one. So yeah, great question. I'm gonna wrangle my way back to The House Guest, though. And the more I talk about it, the more I think, oh yeah, that was good. Oh yeah, I like that part. You know, the scene in the country club is one of my favorites, and the scene on the patio in Cape Cod is another one of my favorites. So when I think about those again, and when I hear readers refer to them, I think, oh yeah, that was actually pretty good. So I love it. I do love it.
I mean, this is my 33rd or 34th year of doing this. And it was like a few months after I opened the Poison Pen when we barely started doing author events, but we had an author who, did a presentation. I was out in the audience because I didn't know any better, and said the author's up there, talking about the book and all. And people asked, and I saw this sort of deer in the headlight moment come over the author. And I thought to myself, he doesn't remember. He's already written another book, and he's going to look like an absolute idiot because asking a question about the book he's there for, and he can't remember. And I, of course, had just read it, in order to do it. So I popped up to my feet and went up to the front, and sort of steered it in that direction. And ever since, we have almost always, except occasionally an author requests a solo, but either I or one of the staff is there. And most of the reason we're there is to protect the author from having forgotten which book they're there to talk about.
We are so grateful. I'll never forget one of my very first book events. It wasn't for my book, it was for another author's book, before I even had a book. And someone asked him a question about his novel, and he said, they said, why did you have Sally do X, Y, and Z? And he's like, I don't
exactly
know. And I thought, didn't you write that? Didn't you write that book? And now I totally understand that. Who's Sally? I don't know. I wrote that a year ago. But I'm back in The House Guest. I'm totally back living with The House Guest now.
Wonderful. Well, that's really good to hear. So, Jacob, pop up from your magic screen here and see if there are any questions that the audience is directing in our. Great.
Hi, Hank. We have tons of questions and comments. Hopefully we can get to them all.
Tons is good. We like that. Thank you all for coming. I can't see you all. I can't see the comments. They don't show on the platform that we are broadcasting from. So I'll go back and look at the comments on the Facebook page, on Poison Pen Facebook page afterward. But that's why I'm not responding to you individually, because I don't know you're here.
Right. But Jacob does.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I got him right here. Okay. This one's from Linda. I met you at a book talk with Suzanne Brockman and won a copy of your first book. I've enjoyed your work since then. What do you know now that you didn't know when you first started? What was the most difficult thing to learn? And was your change a natural progression, or did you have to think it through?
Oh, Linda,
kind of a loaded question, but
that's a
it's a great question, Linda. Thank you. And I love Suzanne Brockman. That was a life-changing, career-changing event. So thank you. And that was a while ago, wasn't it? The thing I've learned about writing, I guess, is two fast things. One is all I can control is that I write the best book that I possibly can. The world changes every moment. Timing changes every moment. Luck changes every moment. Life changes every moment. And I have learned just to try to focus on just being the best author of the best book I possibly can every time. And the sort of corollary of that is that, unlike writing for television, where sometimes I go in at 9 a.m. and I type up a story and do a story really fast and put it on the air at 6 o'clock and it's over, and it is what it is. Writing a novel takes time. It takes much more time than I ever really realized to make it be really good. And as a result, I've learned that I'm going to have terrible writing days. I'm going to have days when I look at my manuscript and I think, this is the worst thing that anybody has ever written. And then instead of being afraid of that, I think, yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeesh, you can fix it later. Go on. And I just go on, because it's not a test like in college where you'd hand in your paper. It's just a day-to-day, word by word, bird by bird path, journey to a first draft. And then I can fix it, and then it will be better. And then I can fix it again, it will be better. So I have learned, and answered your question in one word, patience. I've learned patience, and I've learned what I can control and what I can't control.
Oh,
Does
excellent.
that make sense? Barbara, you're looking skeptical.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm thinking about it. No, I'm not skeptical. I was thinking it was a brilliant answer to an excellent and complex question.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a very similar question. What are your least favorite and favorite parts of writing?
My favorite, they're the same. And it's interesting. They're two ends of the same thing. What you need to write a great novel, a compelling novel, is a really good core idea. Just one little gorgeous, perfect gem of a jewel of an idea. And so the part I like the least is when I don't have those. I know people that say, oh, I have drawers of ideas. I have a million of them. I can tell you very specifically that I have a file in my email called book ideas. And when I was getting ready to write The House Guest, I thought, ooh, I'll just go into my book idea file and find out what the book should be. And it was empty. There was not, I had just titled it Book Ideas, but I had never put anything in it. So waiting for the idea is the worst part. I sometimes know I have faith in the process that the universe will, I know it sounds weird, the universe will provide me an idea when the time is right. I know that. And it's, knock on wood, it's always happened. It's happened 15 times. I only need one. I only need one at a time. But there are days when I think, any time now, I'm ready for this idea. But what I love the most is when I get that idea and I can just see it. I just know this is an idea that will hold, 100,000 words. I can do this. I don't know what the story is going to be, but there it is. And let's do this. And that's what gets me to the computer every day. It's like, I can't wait to find out what happens because I love this story. So it's that core gem idea. When I don't have it, it's the worst. When I do have it, it's the best.
Excellent answer. Again, this one is from Jenny. How do you come up with twists? Do you have a method? Is it trying to anticipate a reader's expectations and work against them?
It's some of that, Jenny. Yes, it's some of that. But what it is at the beginning of it is, I'll say it again, what does someone want? And then how can I make that the most impossible thing to attain? What obstacles can I put in their way? What misperceptions might they have? What might they not know that's going to be the obstacle in the way? I'm going to make their lives worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and make them work to fight to get that thing. So when there is something that happens that's a surprise, that it's something that stops them in their tracks. So I think, as we were talking earlier, and it's so wise that you're onto this twist thing, is that I don't plan it or think about it. I know it sounds weird, but I honestly don't. It's just a thing that happens. Somebody knocks on the door and I think, oh, I wonder who that is. And then in my mind, I open the door and I think, holy cow, it's that person. And I'm just as surprised as the character is. So when I try to technically untangle how something happens, that's the hardest question of all, because I cannot explain it. It's just telling a story, and I just don't know what it is until it happens.
Okay, this one's from Renee. Have you ever used longhand to write your stories, or how do you write?
If I wrote in longhand, I would not even be able to read it. I mean, I would not even be able to read it. After all these years of being a reporter, I write really fast. I can write really fast, and I can read about half of it, and just as long as I get about half of it. So I would type on my computer just in Word, And there are some days, and I'm a terrible typer, even after all these years, I'm a terrible typist. And some days I'm typing so fast that, you know, that thing that used to pop up in Word that says, well, there was this little banner thing, that a violator that popped up in Word that said, there are so many errors, there are so many misspellings and grammatical errors in this manuscript that Word can no longer correct them. And that's what I look forward to, because that means I'm typing so fast that I don't even know what's coming out of my fingers. And there are days when I look back at what I've typed on the computer and think, oh yeah, I wrote that. Huh. I don't even remember writing it. It doesn't happen very often, but I look forward to that. The only time I write in longhand, and I will show you this, I just happen to have my notebook for the book here. The only time I write in longhand is in a notebook like this, and you can see all the pages of my notes. When I need to think what needs to happen or what somebody's motivation is, or, you know, I remember in one scene, I had someone come home and there was something on the door, something taped to their door. And I thought, oh, wonder what that is. It was an envelope. I wonder what's in the envelope. And the way I figured out what was in the envelope was just by longhand in my notebook, writing all the things that could be in an envelope: a letter, a picture, a newspaper clipping, a recipe, a blank piece of paper. Think of, you know, a page from a will, a magazine clipping, who knows, all those things. And I just let my brain go. And that works better when I'm writing it down. So I have my computer and I have my handy notebook, and together, knock on wood, that seems to work.
Although one could add that neither one can really keep up with your mind. You're racing so fast. I mean, but I think that is people who have bad handwriting very often. That is the problem. Your brain is just so, you know, I think a week ago Sunday, I had a little cheat sheet from the American Bookseller Association about this is a day so you can do some marketing thing. And I'm reading along, and it was National Handwriting Day. So I wrote to everybody, because I was writing one of our e-newses, and I said, today is National Handwriting Day, and I'm typing to you because my handwriting, I can't celebrate National Handwriting Day because my handwriting is completely illegible. Illegible.
I know, why is it always the most important word? Don't forget to, you know, and you think, oh, why I can't get that right. I honestly get emails from readers sending me photographs of books I've signed, and they say, can you tell me what this says? Because I can't even read that. So sorry. I
hear you. Right. Anything else, Jacob?
Yeah, one last question, Hank. How are you going to celebrate your publication date?
Oh, golly. I mean, I'm going to celebrate my publication day by just being so happy that it actually happened. I'm in love with this book. I love that you all get to read it. There's a launch party at a bookstore in Boston to which you are all invited in person. That's going to be crazy. I have to get up at, like, I want to say 4 a.m. to make my plane to go to Atlanta. So I fear that the actual celebration of Pub Day will come a little bit later, when I'm finally home with maybe a little champagne and a little celebration. It's quite a moment, I do have to say, on the day that the book comes out. It always brings tears to my eyes, because it was so difficult to do, and the whole thing is just so unlikely that my 14th book is out. So I don't only celebrate on launch day, I celebrate every day. It's just amazing to me all the time. But I wish you were here to celebrate with me.
Well, I wish we were too. But on the other hand, we've had this wonderful conversation together. And thank you, Jacob, for facilitating it. I want to thank everyone who has taken time to watching it, whether you're watching it now live or whether you're going to watch it later. You can also recommend it to people, can watch it on YouTube, and eventually there will be a podcast. So that's all very exciting. And Hank is, as I pointed out, autographing our copies of The House Guest at this very moment. Well, not at this very moment, but very shortly.
In about 2 minutes.
This very moment. And they will be winging our way to us. So I have read Hank's books all these years, and I have admired and enjoyed many of them. But I think this might actually be your best book.
Thank you. I always give 100% to every book.
I know.
And my goal is to get better and better and better. So thank you.
But you said a really true thing, which is that you can write the best book you can write at the time that you write it.
Yes.
And you know, what's wonderful is to see a path where your best book can be better than your best book before and can be better. You know, it's nice to be on an upward path and
Thank
not
you.
a level path, or even worse, a down path. So
Thank you.
I think The House Guest definitely is a up path. So congratulations. It was really a pleasure to read it, Hank. Anyway, goodbye, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks for joining us. Good night.
Night, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Barbara. Thank you. That went well.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Hank.
You too. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.